Reddit, what bizarre celebrity encounters have you had? A buddy of mine was having a smoke outside a bar near Detroit when Bruce Campbell strolls by. It's a little after 1 AM and he's wearing Ray-Ban shades. One of his friends sheepishly asks, "Excuse me, are you Bruce Campbell?" Bruce stops, tips his sunglasses, and responds with, "Well, someone's gotta be." Bruce Campbell is freaking awesome. I just went through the LAX security line with Marilyn Manson. He had FCK scrawled in large letters across the bottom half of his face, with what appeared to be a grease pencil. As we each removed our boots in the security line, he kindly explained that it was not directed at me or anyone else in the airport, but rather at the paparazzi, so that they couldn't sell any photos of him that they took. He was really apologetic about it, and covered his mouth around young children while apologizing to their parents for exposing their child to profanity. Served Christian Bale a latte at work. He went and stood facing the wall, like a child's punishment until his coffee was ready. People were more bemused by his behavior, thus giving him slightly more attention. Matthew Perry playing tennis in London, telling me to frick off at the age of 8 when I asked for his autograph. Think it was during his painkiller addiction. There are many stories online about Matthew Perry being a willy. Louis C.K. tells a good one where he was trying to tip a waitress and Perry grabbed his hand and said, "No, you don't understand. Everything is free." I met Alan Rickman as he was going into the stage door of the theater for the Broadway show seminar. He was walking past me and I quickly blurted out, "I think you're awesome." He stopped, turned slowly towards me, extended a hand to shake mine, raised one eyebrow, and said, "Likewise, it was awesome. That M is pure class." Ted McGinley once hugged me from behind because he thought I was somebody else. I saw Afak's twin on a train to London. I walked up the aisle and said, "Hey, you're Richard James." His name, right? He replied, "Yeah." "You want a sweet?" and proceeded to give me a steak and cheese flavored hard candy. It actually tasted like steak and cheese. WTF. Of course he had steak and cheese flavored sweets. It's Richard D. freaking James. Weird Al. My brother and I were at the airport, and we saw a man walking out of Starbucks who was crouched over with long curly hair. Turns out he was trying not to be seen as it was a busy terminal. We thought he was just some random guy who had Weird Al's hair, and we were bored and immature and decided to ask him if we could take a photo with him because we thought he looked like Weird Al. Lo and behold, when we said "excuse me," he stood up and it was freaking Weird Al. We were in shock for a moment, and I told him, "We thought you were just someone who looked like Weird Al," to which he replied, "Oh, well, I'm glad I look like myself." I got a photo of him with my brother and he's doing the classic Weird Al face in it. He was very friendly despite obviously trying not to stand out. Lou Diamond Phillips tried to buy weed from me at a pool hall. One of the few times I regretted not being a drug dealer. No, not my Richie, not my Richie. Amy Winehouse knocked my pint out my hand in the Good Mixer pub in London, then sung an apology. That was unique. I was having lunch at a cafe in Culver City with a friend when Nick Swardson walked by our table. I said, "Hey Nick, can I get a high five? I love you in Grandma's Boy." So he gave me a high five and then asked me if there was room for another at our table. We were both somewhat confused but moved over and made room for him. So he sat down next to us and took a cookie wrapped in cellophane out of his pocket and said, "Hey, do you guys want some of this cookie? I just got it at the counter. It's so freaking good," and proceeded to break us both off a piece. He asked how our day was going and if we were enjoying our food, then said, "It was great meeting you guys. I'm going to go get really drunk now. Take care and keep being freaking awesome," and walked off. It was a pot cookie, wasn't it? One time I was in a Subway sandwich place in Orem, UT, and Gerard Butler walks up behind me. I look at him, he smiles at me, and then we both pretend that he isn't himself. I say, "You look like Gerard Butler. He's one of my favorite actors." He said, "I get that a lot," and winks. Then he asks, "Well, are you a true fan of his?" And I say, "Of course." He asks if I knew what he used to do. I reply with, "He used to be a lawyer, before giving that up to pursue acting." And then we spent the next 20 minutes discussing law, politics, and why someone would give up a successful career in law. Then, We shook hands and parted ways. Cool story. Didn't realize he was a lawyer, though. Sometimes I hear things and think, wow, this dude is just flat out better than I am. And this is one of those times. As a child, I remember that Bill Cosby and Diana Ross both came to host some corporate event at a large tourist hotel in my beautiful small town. Diana Ross evidently got pretty drunk and didn't make the event, and it was cancelled. It was big news the afternoon it went down, and some of my friends and I were hanging out at the skate park down the street from the hotel. A Rolls pulls up, the back window rolls down, and Bill Cosby sticks his head out. Hey, have you kids seen Diana Ross? Number, she's missing. Oh, how are you kids doing? Then, good. Okay, have a good day. Watch out for Diana Ross. Thanks. Drives off. I have to go home and post this on MSN Messenger. I met Muhammad Ali at the 1996 Olympics in Atlanta. By the time my dad and I reached him in the giant crowd of people around him, he was out of pre-signed autograph slips, so he saw me, a 7-year-old kid, standing in front of him and decided to pick me up above his head, and he kissed me on the cheek. I get out down, and as we're walking away my dad asks if I knew who that was. I said no and started crying while my dad started laughing in delight because his son just met the greatest. Not me, but my dad. A couple months ago, he and his girlfriend decided to take an impromptu weekend trip to Vegas. They're sitting at this bar and notice this guy in a crazy outfit walk in. The paparazzi is trailing him and they get stuck behind a velvet rope near the entrance of the bar. As this guy is trying to sit down, these photographers keep snapping pictures. My dad thought this was pretty rude. He pulled out his phone and started snapping pictures of the paparazzi. They start yelling at him and demanding to know what the heck he thinks he's doing, and he just tells them that if they can take photos of someone who doesn't want it, then he can take photos of them. After a couple minutes, a bodyguard from the guy's table approaches my dad and his girlfriend. My dad figures that they're too close and starts saying, "Sorry, we'll move down a bit," but the bodyguard interrupts him and says, "No sir, Mr. Rodman would like to know if you would join his table." They walk over and to their surprise, it's Dennis Rodman. He thanked my dad for what he did and told him how it was one of the funnier reactions he'd ever seen to the photographers. He bought them a couple drinks and they sat and talked for a while. Apparently he kept saying my dad was a funny guy. Granted, my dad has a pretty decent, if dorky, sense of humor and jokes pretty much constantly. Eventually my dad said they'd go back to the bar and leave him alone for a bit. He thanked them again. After another few minutes, the bartender brings over a bottle of champagne and opens it for them. My dad, being a wine lover, recognizes it as a bottle that runs several $100s and stops the bartender in a panic, assuming he'd misheard their order. The bartender said it was taken care of, at which point Dennis Rodman taps my dad on the shoulder, says, "Enjoy it," and walks out. Wow, class act all the way. I worked as a Santa's helper at Scottsdale Fashion Square back in the early zeros. Very fun and awesome job, but that is another story. One night around 15 minutes before the mall closed, we started to close up early because we had no one in line. A really tall guy walked up with a woman and a little boy, while my head was under the counter getting some items for restocking. The man asked politely if we were still open and if it was okay for them to get a photo with Santa. I said yep. Santa is ready for you when you are. Once I was done with whatever I was doing under the counter, I walked toward the camera and said, "Alright everyone, look right here at the camera and say." It was at this point I saw that the man was Vince Vaughn. Holy crap, Vince Vaughn. I was shocked and thought I'd get canned. After an unbearable silence, Santa, Vince, and the woman said, in unison, "Holy crap, Vince Vaughn." We had a hearty laugh and he let us print out an extra copy of his photo and signed it for us. I used to live in the East Village about a block from Willem Dafoe. I would see him around the neighborhood a lot, enough times that we would nod to one another in greeting as we passed on the sidewalk. One day I walked into our corner convenience store and I completely spaced about why I came in there. I stood just inside the door trying to remember what I came for when I hear the bell on the door jingle and I turn around and see Willem Dafoe standing behind me. It was a small store and he thought I was standing in line at the counter, so I politely told him to go ahead of me because I have no idea what I needed. He steps in front of me, stops, and says, "Damn it, now I can't remember either." After a few seconds he snaps his fingers, reaches up on shelf and pulls down about 5 packs of condoms and giddily throws them on the clerk's counter. I told him I just remembered that I only came in for some dishwashing liquid, got it from another shelf and stood behind him to pay. After he pays, on his way out the door he turns around to me and says it's gonna be a big night. You have been visited by the doggo of balance. He will bring balance and structure into your life if you comment balance well doggo. I hope you enjoyed the video. You can leave a like or comment and YouTube will show this video to more people. I post new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Or don't. Either way, have a great day you magnificent people.